before the guests wearing her royal crown so they could admire her beauty. Vashti refused. She would not parade herself before a drunken crowd. The king's pride was wounded. His own queen had publicly defied him. Enraged and humiliated, Xerxes turned to his wise men. One advisor, Memucan, warned that her defiance would spread. He said, "All women will hear of this and dishonor their husbands." They urged the king to remove Vashti and issue a decree throughout the empire that every man should rule his own household. The king agreed. A royal edict was sent to every province in every language, and Queen Vashti was dethroned. But little did they know, God's unseen hand had just begun to move. As time passed, King Xerxes' anger faded, and he began to reflect on Queen Vashti, her beauty, her bold defiance, and the decree that banished her. Though the law could not be undone, her absence lingered. Sensing the king's mood, his advisors proposed a solution. Let beautiful young virgins be brought from every province. After beauty treatments, the king can choose a new queen to replace Vashti. The king agreed. Messengers were sent across all 127 provinces, and young women were gathered from every corner of the empire, from India to Ethiopia. Among them was Hadassah, known by her Persian name Esther, a young Jewish orphan raised by her cousin Mordecai, a Jew living in Susa. He had taught her to fear God and keep her identity hidden in a foreign land. Esther was taken to the palace and placed under Haggai, the keeper of the women. Immediately, she stood out, not by demanding luxury, but through humility and grace. God gave her favor in everyone's eyes, especially Haggai's. For 12 months, Esther, like all the women, was prepared for her one appearance before the king. When her time came, she entered the king's presence with quiet dignity and strength. And when Xerxes saw her, he was captivated. The king loved Esther more than all the other women. She won his favor, and he placed the royal crown on her head, making her queen in place of Vashti. A royal banquet was held in her honor, a holiday was proclaimed, and gifts were sent across the empire. But no one knew she was a Jew. No one knew God had just placed his servant in the palace, not to be served, but to stand in the gap for his people. Esther continued to live quietly in the king's house, still following the instructions of Mordecai, just as she had when he raised her as a child. Mordecai, meanwhile, spent his days at the king's gate, a place where the city's business was conducted and where royal officials and servants gathered. Though he was no nobleman, God had placed him there with purpose. One day, as Mordecai sat in his usual place, he overheard something chilling. Two of the king's eunuchs, Bigthan and Teresh, who guarded the entrance to the palace, were speaking in hushed, angry tones. Their voices low but full of resentment, they plotted to assassinate King Xerxes. What they intended was treason, the murder of the most powerful man in the world. Mordecai didn't hesitate. He sent word immediately to Queen Esther, who now had direct access to the king. Esther relayed the warning to Xerxes, clearly stating that the information came from Mordecai. An investigation was launched. The matter was examined thoroughly, and the truth was uncovered. The two guards were guilty. They had indeed conspired against the king, and by Persian law, the punishment for such betrayal was swift and brutal. They were hanged on the gallows. The king's life was spared, but the moment passed without fanfare. Mordecai's role in exposing the plot was recorded in the Book of the Chronicles, a royal record of significant events kept in the king's presence. But strangely, no reward was given, no public honor, no recognition, no title, just a name in a book, quietly inked into the records of the empire.
By the way, if you find any of these videos interesting or enjoyable, please consider subscribing. These take a long time to make, and it really helps out.
After some time, King Xerxes promoted Haman the Agagite to the highest rank among his officials. All were ordered to bow to him, but Mordecai refused. Day after day, Haman saw his defiance and burned with anger. When he learned that Mordecai was a Jew, Haman's hatred grew deeper. He didn't just want to punish Mordecai, he wanted to destroy all Jews throughout the empire. Haman cast lots, Purim, to choose the day. Then he approached the king with deceitful words.
There is a certain people scattered through your provinces. They live differently and don't follow your laws. It's not in your interest to tolerate them.
The king agreed, giving Haman his signet ring. A royal decree was sent to all 127 provinces. On the 13th day of the 12th month, every Jew, young and old, was to be killed. As the couriers spread the message, Susa fell into confusion. Mourning broke out among the Jews. When Mordecai learned of the decree, he tore his clothes, put on sackcloth and ashes, and wept bitterly in the streets of Susa. Across the empire, Jews fasted, mourned, and cried out as their destruction had been sealed. When Esther heard Mordecai was in mourning, she sent a messenger to him to find out why. Through the messenger, Mordecai urged her to go before the king and plead for her people. But Esther was afraid. She replied,
"No one may approach the king without being summoned. The penalty is death, unless he holds out the golden scepter. And I haven't been called for 30 days.
Mordecai's answer to the messenger was bold.
Do not think you will escape in the palace. If you stay silent, deliverance will come from somewhere else, but you and your family will perish. And who knows? Perhaps you were made queen for such a time as this."
Esther's fear gave way to faith. She replied,
Go, gather all the Jews in Susa, fast for me for 3 days. I will go to the king, even if it costs me my life. If I perish, I perish.
On the third day, dressed in her royal robes, Esther